So you probably know, everybody knows reverse breathing, right? When you breathe in, you draw the abdomen in. When you breathe out, you push out. And also you're sending energy out your palms. You're drawing the energy when you breathe in, you're drawing up from the earth, up your legs, feeling the hara, leading it to your arms and sending it out your palms. So let's just, tomorrow I introduce a more complicated way, but this is good for now. Well, I want to show you some basic forms for building ki. So let's just start this way. And the in-breath is relaxation. So relax, draw the ki up, pull it in, and breathe out the palms. Normally you do a lot of repetitions, but tonight I'm just going to show you maybe 3 times each, just to get the idea going. 2, push it out. And always breathing through the nose. 3, breathing in, and pushing it out. Then coming this way, in, like pushing on a big ball of energy. In Aikido, they call this Shinkokyu. And the more you focus, the more you concentrate on pushing, especially the breath out your palms, you should start to feel tingling in the palms, the heat. And coming this way, breathing in and lifting. Breathing in, lift. In, relax, draw in, and lift. Coming, holding a smaller ball, breathing in, push. And breathing in, push. One more in. Fill everything up and push. And out. Breathing in and push. Breathing in. Fill up. Push. One more. Breathing in. Push. And coming together, breathing in, and imagine your hands together strong, but don't actually do it. And relax and breathe in, and push out. And breathe in, and push. And coming front. Breathing in and push. Pushing out the palms. Breathing in. Don't tighten your wrists. And pushing out. And above your head, breathing in and push. In, feel all of this, push it up. One more, and push. And come here, breathing in, and lift. Relax the shoulders, elbows out, breathing in, lift. Breathing in and lift. And front. Breathing in, lift. Breathing in. Breathing in one more. Breathing it up, bring it around and push. Breathing in and push. Breathing in and push up towards your head. Breathing in and push. Breathing in one more. Fill it up. Pack it. And so now you get back to your Aiki form. This is the in-breath. And push. So it's not just this is taking in, pushing out. And try to keep your body straight, right? Not to turn so much. So when you come forward, this center, the step, move, right? Move. Drawing the breath in through your arms, through your legs, to your center, pushing it out. Drawing it up. Pulling down with your arms, just pulling up on the chest tissue. So when you raise your arms, you're stretching this, but when you pull down, you're stretching it even more. It's like a pulley. It's not stretching and loosening, stretching and stretching more. I'm not going to say anything about this right now because we're going to be working with it later. So, just in general, the hips want to be stable. Move your hara and keep your head focused forward. Shinkokyu. And fill your whole body with your breath, with the attitude of filling your body with ki. And when you're working with the breath all by itself, instead of as a warm-up, you want to draw the energy directly perpendicular into the bones. This way, and then when it comes to the center of the bone, it comes back up. Draw it to hara. From hara it goes around, cycling. So this morning, a little bit, just spend time on the breath, because the breath is the medium that you use to develop your ki. And also, the ki is depends on the mind. Right? So, how your mind resides in your body. You know? So we try to studying keeping your mind in your center. So you practice the Aikido technique. You don't become in your shoulders. Right? So you can't always think about it because you're thinking about the technique. So you have to feel automatically. This is where I live. This is where I reside. Mm-hmm. So you feel your arm. You don't think this arm. You think this extension of hara. And really, that's what we talked about, pulling silk. Talk about expanding in the 6 directions. It's about connectivity, because that's all rooted in one point. So when you practice the breathing, you breathe into the arms, into the legs, taking it into the bones, which is the deepest place. And then from the bones, automatically it comes up and fills your hara. And then you bring it from there up to the hara, you bring it up. For beginners practice, bring it up to the T5, T6 place. You know, later people are going to take it all the way into the brain. It goes into the brain, then from the brain comes out to the Daling point. We talked about this point yesterday, right? So it starts automatically, your consciousness is coming here. But the beginning, from here out, is a little bit easier, right? And you should try to use always reverse breathing. So reverse breathing means when you breathe in, you're drawing your abdomen in, you're really collapsing your whole, this whole area against your backbone, right? You're drawing in and breathing through your nose, and then automatically it becomes full. It starts to push up the spine, if you visualize that. And then pushing out. And pushing out. When you push out, think about pushing out this point. Everybody know this point? Right? Just below the wrist. Right? Don't think about the hands so much as this point. Because when you're doing your Aikido, if you're thinking about hands, already you're going to, there's something, a blockage there. You want to think this point. You're breathing out this point. This is like a light shining from the arm. Mm-hmm. So breathing in, and really push it in. Later you can do it more mentally, or even your muscles get more developed, and push out. And bring it in. Bringing it into your legs, fill up this is important not to take it directly here. Take it into the arms and legs to the core. Then push it out on the periphery. And gradually, you don't need to do this. You know you're that feeling, so you're bringing in this way. Fill the arms and legs, fill the bones, and push it out. When you push it out, don't forget the legs. It's pushed out the legs and the arms at the same time. It's like expanding a balloon that's all around you when you breathe out. Breathing in, you're collapsing it, and push it. So when you extend ki, you're extending it out your legs, not just your arms. When you do this for 10, 15 minutes a day, what's going to happen is you start to feel your arms very heavy with ki. You don't feel like you need to use muscle. You can start to trust it. It's there. Sometimes, the beginning people, you don't have enough ki in your hara. You practice breathing in and pushing it out to fists. So it doesn't go out. It goes around and comes back. That starts to build up the ki here because it doesn't escape. Then your arms are going to really feel heavy. But And there's a lot of different postures, but not so necessary. I'm not going to get into that this morning. This is fine. Or bringing to the front. Visualize the path that you're bringing it to. Or sometimes this way. Breathe in. Coming in. Now use the center between the wrist and the elbow as a fulcrum for the bending. So you get used to the idea that the elbow is always leading the arm movement. And when you're practicing your physical movements, eventually you should always use the breath with them. So you're practicing spiraling, breathe with it consciously. Take it slow, breathe out. Turning the femur. In the beginning, maybe just back and forth. Then you can start to close, to open. This is a very difficult thing to do well. I can't do it well myself. So, but it's worth working on. I usually don't teach it because I'm not so good at it. But learn to move with the femur and stop moving the hips. The femur turns in place. Your hips stay stable. Draw the breath into your bones. Fill your back and push out. Draw the breath directly into the bones, into your hara. Push out the periphery. Close the femur. Draw the breath. When you open the femur, pick up the chest. Elbows inside. There's a saying in Chinese classics that you're not allowed to feel anything in your upper body which does not originate in the legs. But when you make this kind of movement, this arm is moving because of the leg. Turn legs. Turn legs. Okay, when you do this, some of you obviously haven't done this, so when you turn to the right side, your right femur is opening, left femur is closing. Hips don't move. Some of you, this is really old hat, but and you're not moving from the floating ribs, you're moving from the legs, so this does not happen. Keep your body straight. And add the arms. All right, notice where your elbows are. All right, they should be this upper diagonal of your chest. Yamaguchi Sensei used to say the chest moves the arms. Okay. So let's start with this. Palms up, knees slightly bent. We're going to practice standing up on honoring this line. And so what I want you to do is, without any significant bending of your knees, but bend them a little bit before you start. Right? Without any significant bending of your knees, I want you to bring your sternum into your pelvic cage. So coming this way. Now, from here, in order to stand up, pull your chin back as much as possible and let your stomach protrude as if it was coming out. So you're not using your knees or your back muscles to rise up. Pull the lines. Index fingers is good. Pull the chin back. Now, instead of pushing up with your back, which uses the low back muscles, let your stomach be like fat and come out on the bottom. Pull the chin back, come up. And so I'm going to emphasize this a lot this weekend because it's something which some of us do somewhat naturally and some of us don't, but it should be conscious. It's the first thing you do all the time, really, posturally, and that's bring the chin back. When you bring the chin back, it allows the energy to sink down your back. So when you're coming in this kind of posture, or this one, either one, coming here, this comes back, and you feel the line going to your back. Well, let's do it this way. This way you're lining up the three dantians. And you raise it up, keeping your arms close to your ears. Your coccyx is pulling down. You're pulling the spine upward. Stretch it straight and open. And when you open, it's like, so this is called a heaven pose. You're supporting heaven. Relax your shoulders, it makes your head rise up. Then come back to the front. Breathing in and out. Open. Just upper body, you can put the index finger on top and try to drop your elbows without shortening your arms. So it starts to pull through here, you feel? This is mainly upper body, but later you can connect it to lower body too. Making this, if you had to touch two walls, you wouldn't want to take your fingers off the walls, but you have to drop the elbows. or even just dropping the wrists as the first step, and then from there dropping the elbows. And then start to feel the connection. First connection to feel, because it's the easiest, is between these fingers going across your chest to the fingers on the other side. Right? And then you move with that. Move that. Be like pulling a rope back and forth. Right? Feel it move. You're learning to feel how you're working inside of the sphere created by your feet, the width of your feet. You're working within that scope. Right? Bring it. And then coming up, bring it, and bring that center over to this leg, or to this shoulder, hip, and stretch until it pulls, just, and pulling up, and move it, and move, right? And coming down, center, and pull back chin, and again, move. And when you do this, try not to lean. You want this to pull, so it makes it a little harder, but you make it. Move. And come back. Move. Move. Pull. Back. Come back, pull the chin back, feel the roundness. Bring it up. Stretch, pull this. And coming back. And coming. And pull up. Stretching the spine up, coccyx down, and then open. Open out. Stretch as much as you can. Then relax the shoulders. Head rises up. And coming down again. Chin back. This is a 10. Coming back. This is a Jin person. And Chi is feet, legs. Come back. And back. And pull. Right, let this pull. Forward. Maximum extension. Don't try to do it with your arm. Make it physically pull. Pull on your hip. Pull on that opposite hip. And still keeping, you're in this for this one, you're keeping your focus straight ahead, and you're in between your 2 feet. Move. Move. Feel the pulling. Move. And back down. Turn. Fold the sternum into the pelvic cage. Pull the chin back. Let the stomach protrude. They're coming up. Right, so feel the pull across from your fingers across your chest, pulling across. That's one of the first places you want to start to feel the pulling, the fascia. It's a little more difficult to feel going down the legs, but pulling it this way. Feel the pulling. And if you're pulling here now, then you're pulling all of this. So if you establish first the vertical, and then establish, and move. Coming back up, push your stomach forward and open. This rotation of the shoulder as you come up. And rotation. People try rotating this part, but it's easier if you think about shoulder. Moving. And close. This is lifting, pulling down your back to your knees and pulling up the front. Lifting. And coming down. And then one more time opening. This making power, turning from the shoulder, also from the connection down here, both called, Chinese people call kwa. Right? The opening, move. So when you open, if this is turning but this is not, then no effect. And you have to make it open together, and that opens the chest. And close. In closing, that hara pulls back, pulls on the elbows. In the opening, hara comes forward, chest opens up. And then taking the breathe in as you move and open. Feel your body. And pulling from this across the chest to the opposite side. Feel like pulling a rope here. Then pulling with your back, pull on the elbows, comes down. So you still have a kind of mental tension from your elbow across the chest over to the other elbow. This is not physical tension. Right? Everything is relaxed, but you have a mental tension. Mental tension is, you can say, intent. Right? The moving. Some people call ki, same thing. Right? So let's take it again. Pull with your back. And this is the same, this small, larger place, the small, the move. So creating this yoke. Here. Open. Move. Right? Then pulling, move. And stretch. Pulling. This is pulling diagonal. Here, this way. So when you come here, don't try to balance. It's not balancing. This is extending, pulling this vertical line. So you're trying to balance, you look like this, right? Instead, you're pulling this line, pulling it up, pulling. Then pull the other one from here. And move. And don't straighten your legs. This stays like a ball. Right? So move, pull, establish the vertical. Move. And come down. Move. Chin back. Just make it straight. Feel like a straight line in back, straight line in front. Move. Coming. And vertical stretch. And move. Move. Then stretching up, pull the spine up and down. And open. Open, strong. And pull your back muscles around to the front. Then come back. Move. Pull. And go. So coming back. So just this is training your intent. Intent makes the power of ki. So we talked about the yoke. So think of it as the inside structure. Not just here, but all the way to here. It's attached. Make it expand. Make the whole thing expand without any physical tension. So breathing in, this is called fire breath. You know, like fire needs oxygen to burn. So the fire is drawing the oxygen in. It's drawing in, fill your body with your breath, also with ki. Breathing out is always encouraging the muscle to extend and relax. Breathing in, this makes the muscle wants to contract. Move. No. So the beginning of Aikido, this is expansion from center. So opening every place, open. Spine is pulling up. The energy is going out. Then come back. This is not like contraction. This is like gathering energy. Gathering energy together. This is opening, is feeling a ah sound. Ah, open, right? The closing is oh. The gathering together. Right? And the ah makes opening and closing. Move. And then the move. So your body you need to establish the connectivity. So the most basic is a physical connectivity. The physical means the fascia mostly. So you're coming, stretch this line from your opposite arm, opposite leg. This arm pulls this leg up. The move, pull up. Move. And keep that form as you come down. Boom. Move. This kind of exercise you need to do all the time so you start to feel the connectivity in your body. Move. Stretch, move. Right? And open. So that's not always going together with the physical, it comes the breathing. Right? So breathing starts to make the mental connection. Right? So breathing, the moving. This is the cross, right? This one, this. So gently pulling from fingertips to fingertips across your chest. from your feet, stirrups, up the legs, your back to these 2 points right here, right? So that makes the head come boom, picking up. People always say this point, but I find it's very useful, these points, because it makes straight. So gently pulling. Right? Before you can also pull one side, other move, you feel the pulling. And they call it in Chinese, of course, they call it pulling silk. So it's why silk? Because you too straight, then you break it. So it's very, very gentle, feeling this. Right? And you move, turn, move. So when you turn, it's with the thumb back, this way. This side is pulling the other way. It's opening. You move. Coming back, opening, 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 opening. So thumb is going back. This is my hitchhiking side, right? This one is pulling the other way. Opening. This is also stretching the fascia across the diagonals from your right leg to left arm, etc. So you feel this stretching. It's the same as stretching, pulling this to this side. Right? Pulling up, pulling up, pulling up. Right? So it's not balancing. It's lifting, pulling that, pulling. Feel full pulling the fascia. And the full version is coming and pulling, pull, move. And same, keep the same shape. Don't straighten out your legs. Keep the same shape when you come down. Move, pull it up, pull, keep the same shape, and come boom to the center. Remove. Pull. Keep the shape, pull, boom. Come down. Right? So when you're moving the leg, you don't want to be going back and forth. Right? Back side is coming up. If I'm turning to my right, the back side of my right is rising and comes over. You see this diagonal line? Comes over, back down to the center. Now, a lot of times people do this, you start looking like this, so try to keep it straight and move. Move. Becomes a very tight little ring in here. Move. Move. Okay. So the first we started out feeling here, this going back, this opening, right? And the other side. And little by little, as you do that, you start to bring the arms in front. Bring it back. Move. Moving. Now you're spiraling. Moving. 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 And you can take it close to your body like this. Try that way out here. Rotate the upper arm. Moving. Moving. Right, so then the closing, the opening. Right? Closing. Same thing here, closing, opening, and try to do it without moving your knees. And you're coming here, moving, and straight. And when Osensei did it, if you ever saw the films, his feet go about that far off the mat. He goes, boom. That's right. It's not really necessary. What you do want to feel is how this opens. And the important thing up here is people, when they open, they tend to put their shoulders back. And you don't want to be doing that. The shoulders always want to be pulling exactly horizontally when you're opening and when you're closing. They don't go this way either. They stay right there and they're pulling in not only the shoulders, but all of this tissue on the back. When you're opening, it's still pulling sideways this way. When you're opening, it is. When you're closing more, this is still pulling. So you feel like, we talk about the expression turtleback, right? When you're making this close, which we call turtleback, it doesn't come around this way. It stretches out. If you take the Ming Men, or a little bit higher than that, it expands in a circle. So going in every direction, moving out. And then when you open, that circle becomes inverted. But it's still reaching this way. Right? So, coming stretch. So the first movement is always expansion. And we're expanding from our center. So expanding from the center, I mean, you've heard this a million times, so you're not unfamiliar with it. The idea of that your legs are pulling down from your hara, your arms are pulling up from your hara, and you're expanding in all directions. You're very familiar with that. I'd like to introduce something a little, I think, more detailed tonight. That you can start, when you're trying to stretch fascia, when you're pulling, you tend to be reaching out and you're trying to expand from here. But what you want to be doing, traditionally, everybody's familiar with the asagao hand form. Asagao, no? Morning glory flower, right? So the middle finger and thumb are on a horizontal plane. The index finger is slightly up and back. The little finger is slightly down. And when you open, it rotates forward. Now, how much it rotates is hard to know, so you can screw it up. The way to not screw it up is to let this point, the Daling point, in the middle of the wrist, be pushing forward. When that's pushing forward, you will rotate the right amount. Right now, you see, some of you are giving your palms. It's not that. If I do this properly, you'll see that when I meet something, my palms are not here. I'm not going here. I'm coming. This is touching first. Right? So when you do this, you move. Right? This is probably your most basic movement. You're pulling. When you open your hands, you should be pulling with your fingers. And when you pull with your fingers, you can feel your own body. Feel your forearm and make this motion. Feel your forearm. There's a certain tenacity there. It's not dead. This is much more dead, isn't it? When you open your hand, suddenly there's a lot of spring back in those muscles. In the muscles, the fascia, the tissue. In other words, if I try to pull on this, I can't pull through the forearm because I can't even open my hand without activating those tissues. So this is all pulling. It's all pulling. This I can pull through because I can have nothing. Don't have to alter these muscles at all to pull on this. So when I pull out from my center, right, I'm pulling with the forearm and the fingers, but I'm pulling through all of this. Pulling through it. So this remains kind of, I would like you to think of it as independent from your forearms. This is a unit of something, and this is totally different. It's free. So when you're stretching, you reach out, make sure you're pulling with your fingers, and that pulling is rotating. It's a spiral. It's a spiral opening up. When you come back down, it's pulling from the sternum towards your shoulders, opening in that way. Moving, round and back, opening, stretching, and pulling. And then we take it to here, and we go to the skull, spiraling up and pulling and move. Right? Let that form come down, boom, and spiraling up the other side. What I'm really concerned with here is that tonight, what I'm going to put all the emphasis on is that you're getting this feeling of pulling with the turning of the hand. And you're going to see why in a minute. So more. Opening. Now you know you're not supposed to have stiff fingers, but pulling with the fingers is not making the joint stiff. You should be able any time to do this and still open. And as your ability to control this with your mind becomes stronger, is a lot less. There should be no tension really. But in the beginning, you're going to kind of need a little bit of tension because you got to get used to this being alive. When you start doing techniques, I can pretty much guarantee you this is going to happen, or something strange, and I'm going to call you on it, and you'll say, "Oh my God, what? Right? Because it's a lot harder than you think to maintain this form, and that's what in most 90% of the cases, what you should be doing is maintaining this form. Now, I say maintaining. You can take that form and move it all over the place, but the form itself is not really altered. Can you see what I'm saying? The form is still the same. It's turning. Your default position is thumb and index finger on top, and you can turn it so that it's a little bit diagonal. You can turn it inside. Right? You don't usually want to turn the palm straight up or straight down or straight forward. You're always moving according to this motion. So when you do this one, this is up on the toes, and then boom, down with the heels. And the tissue, the fascial tissue running from the bottom of the feet up to the legs and up the back, two large lines, comes up to these two anchor points on your head. So you want to be picking that up to kind of stretch that straight. And that's when you do this kind of motion, it's going down and this is picking up. That's what's happening as you make this happen. So a lot of the stuff Gleason Sensei didn't get explained much. So moving, the closing, opening, right? Closing. Same thing here, closing, opening, and try to do it without moving your knees. And you're coming here, moving, and straight. And when Gleason Sensei did it, if you ever saw the films, his feet go about that far off the mat. He goes, boom. That's right. It's not really necessary. What you do want to feel is how this opens. And the important thing up here is people, when they open, they tend to put their shoulders back. And you don't want to be doing that. The shoulders always want to be pulling exactly horizontally when you're opening and when you're closing. They don't go this way either. They stay right there, and they're pulling in. Not only the shoulders, but all of this tissue on the back. When you're opening, it's still pulling sideways this way. When you're opening, it is. When you're closing more, this is still pulling. So you feel like, we talk about the expression turtle back, right? When you're making this close, which we call turtle back, it doesn't come around this way. It stretches out. If you take the Ming Men, or a little bit higher than that, it expands in a circle. So going in every direction, moving out. And then when you open, that circle becomes inverted. But it's still reaching this way. Right? So, coming stretch. So the first movement is always expansion. And we're expanding from our center. So expanding from the center, I mean, you've heard this a million times, so you're not unfamiliar with it. The idea of that your legs are pulling down from your hara, your arms are pulling up from your hara, and you're expanding in all directions. You're very familiar with that. I'd like to introduce something a little, I think, more detailed tonight. That you can start, when you're trying to stretch fascia, when you're pulling, you tend to be reaching out and you're trying to expand from here. But what you want to be doing, traditionally, everybody's familiar with the asagao hand form. Asagao, no? Morning glory flower, right? So the middle finger and thumb are on a horizontal plane. The index finger is slightly up and back. The little finger is slightly down. And when you open, it rotates forward. Now, how much it rotates is hard to know, so you can screw it up. The way to not screw it up is to let this point, the Daling point, in the middle of the wrist, be pushing forward. When that's pushing forward, you will rotate the right amount. Right now, see, some of you are giving your palms. It's not that. If I do this properly, you'll see that when I meet something, my palms are not here. I'm not going here. I'm coming. This is touching first. Right? So when you do this, you move. Right? This is probably your most basic movement. You're pulling. When you open your hands, you should be pulling with your fingers. And when you pull with your fingers, you can feel your own body. Feel your forearm and make this motion. Feel your forearm. There's a certain tenacity there. It's not dead. This is much more dead, isn't it? When you open your hand, suddenly there's a lot of spring back in those muscles, in the muscles, the fascia, the tissue. In other words, if I try to pull on this, I can't pull through the forearm because I can't even open my hand without activating those tissues. So this is all pulling. It's all pulling. This I can pull through because I can have nothing. Don't have to alter these muscles at all to pull on this. So when I pull out from my center, right, I'm pulling with the forearm and the fingers, but I'm pulling through all of this. Pulling through it. So this remains kind of, I would like you to think of it as independent from your forearms. This is a unit of something, and this is totally different. It's free. So when you're stretching, you reach out, make sure you're pulling with your fingers, and that pulling is rotating. It's a spiral. It's a spiral opening up. When you come back down, it's pulling from the sternum towards your shoulders, opening in that way. Moving, round and back, opening, stretching, and pulling. And then we take it to here, and we go to the skull, spiraling up and pulling and move. Right? Let that form come down, boom, and spiraling up the other side. What I'm really concerned with here is that tonight, what I'm going to put all the emphasis on is that you're getting this feeling of pulling with the turning of the hand. And you're going to see why in a minute. So, opening. Now, you know you're not supposed to have stiff fingers, but pulling with the fingers is not making the joint stiff. You should be able any time to do this and still open. And as your ability to control this with your mind becomes stronger, is a lot less, there should be no tension really. But in the beginning, you're going to kind of need a little bit of tension because you got to get used to this being alive. When you start doing techniques, I can pretty much guarantee you this is going to happen, or something strange, and I'm going to call you on it, and you'll say, "Oh my God, what? Right? Because it's a lot harder than you think to maintain this form, and that's what in most 90% of the cases, what you should be doing is maintaining this form. Now, I say maintaining. You can take that form and move it all over the place, but the form itself is not really altered. Can you see what I'm saying? The form is still the same. It's turning. Your default position is thumb and index finger on top, and you can turn it so that it's a little bit diagonal. You can turn it inside. Right? You don't usually want to turn the palm straight up or straight down or straight forward. You're always moving according to this motion. Good morning. Just open the chest. These exercises are very important, not just to be strong against Nikkyo and Sankyo, but as I talked about last night a lot, the main focus of our training, basic technique is kata. This is not realistic. This is kata. There's a lot of people make a mistake about this, and therefore they say, "Oh, well, I don't do technique anymore. I don't need that," because this is kata, because it's not supposed to be realistic. Right? Sword kata is also not realistic. It's teaching you skills so that you can use in real spontaneous situation. So this is developing an Aiki body. This is the purpose of the training. Your techniques are never going to work until you've developed an Aiki body. You have to understand what that is. It's a body that's fully connected. It's a body that is connected, and then you can learn how to move it according to the principle of natural movement. Right? So the beginning, as I said last night, of that is pulling in all directions, which all of you know, pulling your fascial tissue and so forth. But the physical part of that begins with developing the forearm. And this comes from sword. Takeda Sokaku was the Ito Ryuman, and he developed this, what you call hanskami, which is the proper way to hold the sword. It's like this. It's not like this. It's here. And we do it without the sword with pulling asagao. Asagao is the hand form of, and what you do when you open that, you're not just creating a hand form, you're pulling on all this tissue, which is here. And eventually you reach a state where this tissue is always activated. It's hanging loose, but it's like it has penetrating power. It feels like a piece of metal in this. It's not even alive. It's just something you're wielding like a sword. Right? And the rest behind that is loose because it's protected by this. So when you come out and you're moving, the opening of asagao is not like Aikido people doing this kind of thing. Right? This is a spiraling forward and pulling on these tissues. Now, fair to say, and it's important probably to say, is that it's physically pulling here. You can feel that, and you should feel it. It's important to feel it. But once it goes here, it's pulling through. It's not physically effective. It's pulling through, and it's pulling on the hara, pulling on all this tissue. But it's essential to feel here is actually physically being activated, which just by opening your hand, you can feel that the muscles are being activated. You have to use them to do that. Right? So when you pull out with this, there's a slight rotation. And to gauge the degree of that rotation, you push this point forward. And the rotation will be pretty minuscule, but it'll be correct. When you come in here, you're moving. You're moving. You move. So and then when you start to stretch, don't think about just this area. You always think you're pulling with your fingers. You're pulling on this through here. You're pulling all of this tissue. Right? You're moving. Reach out. Down. Stretch, pulling through. And when you come down, you're pulling this tissue from the chest, expanding outward from the sternum. And then coming, you move. And again, pulling the tissue. And come down. Pull. This is probably considered traditionally one of the most important exercises. Every art does it. Because it's not about balance, it's because you're pulling these tissues.
We forgot. I'm looking at you and there's no sound. Excuse me.
I'll make a I was making plenty of noise.
Yeah, but when they watch the video, no one would be hearing you. If you could just stick that
Just
in
hold
there.
that pose.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right? So when you're pulling, this area is not being pulled forward at all. Right? In fact, it wants to be feeling going the other way. What you're pulling is going through the center of it. You can visualize it that way, whether it's true or not. You're pulling threads, you're pulling something like a thread through here, and you're not affecting it, but you are pulling this forward, and you're not pulling that forward. So, and that's pulling, the fact that that is true is making it possible that you're pulling on this, right here. So when you open up, moving, pulling, you're pulling on all of this, you're pulling through it. When you come down, you're pulling here and opening. Moving. And that same thing now with the coming and stretch. And bring it down. Right? And the idea here, when you come, you're pulling this line to this leg and you're pulling this one up. When you come down, keep that shape so you bounce right off it. Right? Don't try to balance and come down comfortably. Come down and land on that. And if you really do that, you'll probably slide a little. You're coming here. And coming. Move. And open. And open the body. When you open the body, it's not just reaching your arms up, right? Open the humerus, both arms open up, that opens the chest, you're opening both femur, everything open. Same thing closing, the moving. Draw your breath to your center. Drawing your breath to your center is the first, most basic step in getting your ki throughout your body. So you can start to, ki is mind. And if your mind doesn't get throughout your body, you're not connected to yourself. You're a bunch of pieces, and nothing works well. Then coming up, same. You have to sink the scapula. Can you see this? Sink it goes. You sink the scapula, this makes the shoulder go back. So the arm becomes supported by your spine rather than the shoulder. And you can sink it back. And then when you start to sink the scapula, this also hollows out the area under the arm. You feel opening here. So instead of pushing the hand forward, it starts to go forward because of the hollowing out underneath the arm. Moving here. Right?